my name is Cameron and today we're doing the rules regarding steaming using a steam box. I actually just recently bent the sides of this guitar using a steam box.
Oh, sorry, this guitar. Oh, that's better.
So yeah, this guitar here, you can see the sides here in maple. The guitar's not finished yet, by the way, but you can see the sides of the maple, quite tight bends here. And did that using a steam box, so you're actually able to bend it, do the bend in seconds. In fact, you have to do it in seconds.
Thanks for hanging around, guitar. You can go now. Oh, good.
So now I think we can cover some of the equipment that I used. The first thing is the steam box itself. Now you might be actually watching a bit of video now of the first steam box I did, which was a wooden steam box. A couple of things about wooden steam boxes. One, this one you're seeing is far too big for what I'm using it for. You really want the steam box to be as small as you can get away with for the project you're doing, because the less space the steam has to fill, the more effective it's going to be. This one here is version 2.0. It's actually a piece of downpipe. You can get round downpipe or oblong square like this one. So this is downpipe. It's basically as long as I needed it to be for doing guitar sides. If I take the lid off here, you'll see it's not that big inside. It's just big enough really to fit. It's got enough width for a guitar side, a little bit of height, and that's it. It's metal, so it's not going to soak up any water like timber does, and it's not going to crack like timber does, and it's also it's not going to soak up any of the water or heat. This is the door. You can see here I'll get a bit closer for you. I've made basically a plug that goes inside this, fits inside. I had to cut out a little ridge on top to allow for this little ridge on here. I wish it didn't have it, but it did. The grain is running straight up and down on the plug, whereas on the back plate here it's running across. So the reason I have the grain running in different directions is just for strength, because the heat will warp the timber, as you've seen here. This did warp. I had this strap on originally, then I ended up putting these couple of hardwood straps on the back here to stop it bending anymore, and that did stop it. So yeah, it just fits in like this, and it's a fairly snug fit. So you just really want to make a piece of timber that fits in snugly. Once it gets wet, the timber will expand and it'll give you actually quite a good seal. On the back end here, you can see this is where I stick my hose with the steam, and basically what we've got here is a wooden plate, the same structure as on the door, that I have a wooden plate here with a plug on it and a plug that goes internal. Then these bits of wood here, basically I've got them all on all four sides around it, and you can see there's screws here. So those screws are actually screwed into the internal plug, holding the timber firmly against it. So it's just keeping the plug really against the interior surface and holding it down. These aren't really meant to stop steam coming out or anything, it's just to hold the metal against the plug so not much steam comes out. A bit of steam does leak out, but not much. This plate here on the back is actually a piece of hardwood just bolted on to stop the back warping, because yeah, timber will warp very easily with steam, which is the whole reason we use it. You don't want your actual timber that you're bending to touch metal, because it'll discolour it most likely, turn it black. You can see here actually where the screws are in here that the metal has indeed turned this timber black, but you don't want it touching metal. So what I've done here is I've just made, these are just standoffs. They sit in like that on the base, and I can move them a little bit. They still allow steam to pass underneath because they've just got these holding it, so steam can still go around. And I've cut all these little channels along here so steam can get in underneath your timber if you have a piece of timber resting on these. So yeah, I just have these two floating in there, so I can take them in and out to dry or whatever, and they just float in there. I can move them if I need to, and I slide the timber in on top of those. It just keeps them off the surface, also keeps them closer to the top, which is obviously going to be the hotter part. So that's the steamer. The steam box. I then have this piece of tube, which I bought, just PVC tube, like plumbing supply tube. Actually could be used as downpipe as well, except it's plastic. You can buy caps usually. I put the cap on and glued it right around just to make a seal so it's watertight. Left one end open. I fill this with water and put my guitar sides in here because the timber bobs up, so I just put this on top to hold the timber down into the water. One of the tips I've got for you, which I'll explain how I came about this while you're watching me bend stuff. Fabric softener, put a little bit of fabric softener in the water. Now the steamer I'm using, I've got this one from Wagner. Now in North America I've seen what looks to be the identical steamer. It's Rockler, and it's basically a wallpaper steamer. So you've got a long hose that goes from the steamer to your unit, and I just push this into the back of my steamer. I just push it in, and it actually makes quite a tight fit the way I've done the hole, because the hole's quite long as well, and virtually no steam comes out of there. So it seals it up quite well. The unit itself holds 4 litres of water, which they say is good for an hour. I think it lasts slightly less than an hour. It has a safety feature where it actually cuts out when the water level gets too low, which is good. And I think because of that, it actually lasts a little bit less than an hour. These couple of attachments which the hose can go onto for projecting steam in a small place. That's obviously if you want to get rid of wallpaper. I was actually going to use this for a guitar back to make a curve in the back by putting this up against the back and putting some weight on top and letting it curve. I was going to do it on this build, but I ended up not doing that. And now we'll just watch some videos of me unsuccessfully bending a lot of different woods, and at the end you'll see me successfully bending the maple which I use for the size of this guitar. And yeah, we'll explain more during the video. Fast while this is hot. I don't think it'll go that far, but okay. Snapped. Okay, so that hardly bent at all. The timber doesn't even feel wet, to be honest with you. Here is the steam box running full gear. I'm just putting in a couple of bits of pine, which you just saw snap. That was from the wooden steam box, and this is my first time putting anything in this new steam box. Wearing gloves, of course, because it steams hot. And the steam box gets hot too because it's metal, so you don't want to be touching it with bare hands. And as you will see, the plug is now quite tight because it's swollen. So I've turned the sound off now, and it was just my commentary. I toured the internet. This pine just keeps snapping. Doesn't bend at all. I looked around the internet for tips on how to do things, and like anything on the internet, a lot of it is baloney and doesn't work. But probably the best resource I've found for steam bending is Engel's Coach Shop, and I might put a link in the description if I can remember to do that. Engel's Coach Shop bends wheels for old-fashioned coaches, wooden wheels, and so they bend timber that's quite thick. It's about an inch thick, I think. Anyway, he says that you can't bend evergreens, which evergreen is, I think, the technical definition of softwood and hardwood. So he's kind of saying you can't bend softwood or you can't bend evergreens. Now, in this case, when it comes to pine, he's correct, and yeah, it just does. You just can't bend it. The other thing he says is green wood is better, and air dried is next best, and kiln dried is the worst. Now, unfortunately, the only timber I can get hold of is kiln dried, unless I cut down a tree or something myself and make it into timber. But I don't really have suitable timbers that I can go hacking down anywhere. So, as you see, this stuff just snaps, just doesn't bend. It really doesn't make any difference whether it's steamed or not. Pretty much, it just doesn't bend.
Now the other thing that Engels says is straight grain is good. So you want grain that runs straight along the timber, and you don't want too much run out. Now I found I could use flat sawn, didn't have to be quarter sawn or anything like that. Now here I am actually, just while this is happening, this is a piece of Karri, K-A-R-R-I, it's an Australian timber. I've just put in a steamer and it fell off my little rack and went on the side, and look at that. Did you notice how much it bent just then? Look, see that bend? That's just the weight of the timber making it bend. And
that's interesting.
so basically, as soon as it started to get hot, it just started bending. I'm bending a piece of Blackwood wattle now, Tasmanian Blackwood. So yeah, so that implies to me, unlike some sites say, it's not the water that really helps it bend, it's just the heat. The steam, or the steam is just a means by which the heat can penetrate the wood, and it's really the heat that makes the wood bend, not the steam. So the most important thing is to be quick. Now, as you'll see me here, I'm not very good at the start because I'm learning how to do it, and I'm pretty cumbersome. I take too long sometimes. I'm just showing here this bit of Blackwood, how it bent. It was only a small piece, an offcut I had. This is a piece of Karri, Western Australian hardwood, very tall tree, very straight grained. And I started bending both sides. I was being sort of cautious, trying to gently do it and all that. And what I've learnt now is, if it's going to bend, it'll bend. Don't bother being gentle. If you've got curves that it has to go around, get it out of the steamer and push it around as fast as you can. Don't worry about gradually doing it and giving it time to adjust or anything like that. It doesn't make any difference. What you want to do is it's like here I'm just bending it a bit more, when really you should just go bend it exactly to where you got to get it as fast as possible, whack the bit in, bend it the other way. Because it's time that's the killer here. As you're losing heat, you're losing flexibility. Now, someone else I saw said that you should spray water on them, like if they start drying out. Some of the different types of timbers will dry out a lot quicker than others. I'm showing here the timber sort of let go a little bit there, like it's just on the surface it's broken. I reckon with a bit of glue and a bit of sanding it'll come up okay. But the rest of these bends here look quite good. So Karri actually bends fairly well. Now it is an evergreen. Pretty much almost all trees in Australia are evergreens. So there's very few native deciduous trees. Had a little bit of breakaway here as well. Might be a bit hard to see with the shadow, but oh yeah, it's a bit of shot. Comes away a little bit there. I think if I just heated it up, pushed it in, and then put some sort of swib glue or something under it, and then pushed it in, and let it set, then sanded it, you wouldn't notice it. So Karri is usable or bendable. I don't know how good it is for a guitar side though, because what I did notice is it sometimes cracks along its length, like a lot of Australian timbers do. This is a piece of walnut. This seemed to dry out really quickly. So yeah, someone had told me, one of the videos I watched, to spray it with water, and you probably will see me spraying some of them with water because I sort of took that advice on board. But I think it's a really bad idea now on reflection. I think all the water does is cool it down. I guess if you were spraying boiling water onto it, it might help, but just like cold water will just cool the timber down even quicker, and it's probably the worst thing you can do, in my opinion, as far as I can tell. I mean, this is the internet, and maybe I've got it wrong as well. So take it with a grain of salt. And the dog barking in the background, sorry about that. And it just actually starts to snap here. Don't know if you can hear that or not. So I'm showing here, did make the first couple of bends. Actually, walnut was not too bad. But near the end there, it snapped. So yeah, Ingles Coat Shop says you want straight grain, you don't want run out, and that does seem to be right if possible, but you can use quarter sawn or flat sawn, doesn't seem to matter. Now the other thing that he says to do, you know, I've put in some fabric softener in the water. So he says to put ammonia in the water. Now I went on the internet, had a look, and there's all sorts of different kinds of ammonia. So knowing which kind of ammonia to use is a kind of a nightmare. So a lot of people say just use fabric softener, and so some fabric softeners are ammonia based, some aren't. So I just used fabric softener. There's no ingredients written on any fabric softener bottle I could find at my local supermarket. Apparently in Australia they don't have to put the ingredients on fabric softener, and I guess nobody wants to read that they're putting their kids' clothes in ammonia. Oh, it looks like I've left the sound on for this little bit. You can see it cracks there when I push it in. This was Blackwood wattle. It was a thicker piece, like a taller piece, and it just broke. No good. So yeah, they don't list the ingredients on the bottle, so I'm just winging it and hoping I'm okay using the fabric softener. Ammonia is a bit toxic too, so you've got to be careful. Now, the other thing that Engels Coat Shop does is he actually has a big industrial process, and he has a big metal steamers, and he actually puts the fabric softener in the water that he's turning into steam. So the steam itself actually has, not fabric softener, ammonia, has ammonia in it. Whereas I don't want to put that in my electric steamer, was he using a big, like, heating it up with gas or whatever. So, because I don't want to wreck the element. So I just put it in the water that I soaked the timber in for 24 hours before I put it in, and then, when I put it in the steamer, hopefully some of that fabric softener has an effect. It's supposed to help the water penetrate the wood, is the idea of it. Here you see me madly spraying on water because, I thought, oh, maybe that'd help after the last piece broke. Actually, I think this actually looks a bit like spotted gum. Anyway. Hopefully I had text at the start of this telling you what timber it was, because I kind of forget now looking at it. Now, Engels Coat Shop also says that the steam box shouldn't be made of wood. The other thing with Engels Coat Shop, and you'll see everyone quotes Engels Coat Shop on the internet, that you should steam the timber for an hour for every inch of thickness. So if you have a 1 inch piece of timber, you should steam it for an hour, 2 inch thick, 2 hours, or half an inch thick, 30 minutes, I guess. I used 15 minutes for all my pieces. But what people neglect when they're quoting him is Engels Coat Shop says an hour for every inch under pressure, because he has big metal steamer, steams it under pressure, like I think 2 to 3 pounds of pressure, he says. Most domestic people like myself won't be able to get that sort of pressure, so you probably have to steam it for a bit longer than what everybody seems to be quoting on the internet. So that's why I didn't really leave any air holes on my steamer, because I want to get at least a bit of pressure. Now, because I've got a lid that I just push on, if there's any major pressure, it'll just blow the lid off, so it's not going to explode or anything. Here I am spraying water again. Well, it's already broken, so it doesn't really matter. I think this is... I had it written at the start what it was anyway. I was actually trying to make this one for a guitar side, which is why it's that sort of height. And a bit annoyed, I think, when this one didn't work, because I wanted to use Blackwood for the sides of my guitar, because I did make Blackwood top and bottom. So yeah, 2 to 3 pounds of pressure. So most domestic steamers, you can't do that, so that's something else to note. The other thing is, most people when they bend guitar sides, they use a metal strap on one side. So Engels Coat Shop says, and pretty much everybody agrees, that timber will compress, but it won't stretch, or it won't stretch very well anyway. So often when people are bending sides, if they're using like a press where they have a mold and they just press the timber down into it, they'll put some metal on one side, usually it's on the side that is going to be the outer edge. Like see this bend here that I'm pointing at, this bend where you just see it going around. They put the metal there around that side, so that where the timber is trying to stretch, the metal band will stop it from stretching if it's tight against the timber. The only thing is here where we're changing directions, in parts of it, it's the inside bend, then the other side of the timber becomes the outside of the bend. So you've got outsides on both sides of the timber. You can't really use two metal straps as far as I'm aware. So you have to sort of choose, I guess, to put the metal strap on the side that has the most severe bends, and yeah. Now this is maple, and you saw there, it just bends like rubber. And this is why I said be quick. See how quickly I did that bend? If it's going to work, it will just work. So if you're just trying it the first time, yeah, practice your clamping technique. But yeah, don't worry about being tender with it and being really careful on the bend and I don't want to make it crack. Just go fast. That's the main thing. I had a bit too much slack there, so I'm just pulling it through. Maple is a great timber. It's good for a lot of things, and I forgot to put that other one in, so I'm just putting it now. And the clamp, I can't get the clamp off. Yay! Luckily, maple is quite forgiving and had a fair bit of time for me to do everything. So I think that's most of the commentary now. But yeah, like I say, a lot of people will tell you to use a wooden steam box, but Engel's Coat Shop says no, use metal because the timber just soaks up a lot of the heat and the water, and it doesn't help. Alright, so here you can see that's it's actually quarter sawn this piece, and it's not big enough for a guitar side. It was just an offcut I had left over from another project, and I thought I'd give it a go because I didn't think maple was going to bend, but it did. So quite a few places on the internet were saying maple won't bend. Yeah.
I had seen comments saying maple is bad for bending, but I've seen other comments saying no, you can bend it, it's alright, which obviously you can. But they're saying you get a lot of spring back. Huh. Okay, I would call that almost no spring back.
Sorry about that, I might have had my speaker going as well, so the audio was a bit funny there. And so now this is a flat sawn piece of maple. It bends just as well and doesn't break or have tear out or anything. It's just as good. So now all the timber I've been bending varies from about 2.5 millimeters to 4 millimeters in thickness. As you can see, maple and spotted gum's the other one. They can offer quite a bit of resistance if you're trying to like push. Like where I'm bending a piece where it's in the middle of two bits that are already sort of going the other way, it offers quite a bit of resistance. So it's a bit of an unusual system I'm using here with this jig I've got, putting the rods and stuff in. I haven't seen anybody else use this before. It was just an idea I came up with for steam bending and sort of quickly doing it because it would allow me to push around and then have the barrier.
Well, that didn't move much.
Sorry, so I was saying there, people said the wood has a lot of spring back in maple, but no. So people who said it did bend said it had a lot of spring back, which turned out not to be true, and other people said it wouldn't bend. This is Karri again. I can't find anything about bending Karri on the internet, so but it's pretty good. You could use it for a guitar side like this. It would work. It would work. You just have to be a bit more careful. I think you need to sand both sides before you do it. I'm only sanding sort of the outer side and leaving the inside rough. I think with Karri you need to sand both sides because it seems like it seems to get folds almost if you leave like lines on it where it's got one spot that's weaker than the others. It'll tend to sort of fold on that weak line, whereas if you have it smooth it bends more evenly. So that was something that I didn't quite get right. But yeah, Karri, the two woods here that have been usable is Karri and maple. The only thing with the Karri is it wasn't the right colour for this build, and I think it might be this piece, but one of the pieces I did a test on already had cracks in it when I did it, and the piece I cut it from didn't have cracks, and then I noticed a few weeks later it developed cracks along the grain. So across the grain never had a crack in it, but along the grain it was cracking. So I don't know if that's typical of Karri or not. It is used mainly for decking here in Australia, so it's quite hard, quite heavy. Spotted gum, by the way, which I have been using, don't use spotted gum for any fine woodworking. I hear that one, yeah, you could see the cracks there, and even in here you can see a small fold. Yeah, and that fold has come where you can see the line there from where my...
It's kind of got a bit of a bend in it. That would probably actually be fixable.
Sorry, it's already audio. Yeah, so I was just showing that. So this is spotted gum again. Yes, I was going to say is don't use spotted gum to build a guitar or any woodwork that you need fine quality fit, because it's terrible. It moves, like it just moves a lot. Now there are people on the internet saying that it's used in boat building, and it can be steam bent. It sort of steam bends a bit. Like you could get some sort of gentle curves in it without a problem, I think. But the bends that I was asking you to do here were just too much. As you can see, the timber is really strong. It's very dense, very heavy, and a bit oily. When you put it in, this is the only one that when I put it in the water, it just sank straight to the bottom. Does not float at all, which is one of the reasons why I thought it was a bit odd that they were using it for boat building. But I guess they make boats out of steel too, so it's more the displacement rather than the flotation of the material. But I couldn't make a guitar side for this guitar because my bends are pretty severe. A standard guitar you might be able to do it, but you wouldn't do it because spotted gum moves so much after you make things and gaps just open up in it. It just moves a lot. You can see it, and this is how spotted gum does break. It sort of tears, and it doesn't off. Sometimes it'll tear like on the outside, but the inside won't tear, if you know what I mean. Like just the outside will kind of break off. It doesn't usually like just snap right through. It sort of bits tear off, like you see these bits here as well. Obviously the outside is not as well supported, so but this bit sort of nearly made it around. But yeah, it's used for decking and used to be used for tool handles in olden days. Beautiful timber, by the way, and you can get greys and browns and caramels and all that. But this is another piece of Karri. This piece didn't have any cracks in it, and I just wanted to see if it was a feasible timber. And I think I get another fold, like an apex fold in it again. But you could do it with Karri. Whether it would develop cracks over time, and I don't know, because I don't know anybody who uses it for anything other than decking. So on the deciduous and evergreen thing, so yeah, pretty much there are a couple of, I think, pitostrums or something. There are some native Australians that are deciduous, but most trees in Australia are evergreens. And so when spotted gum is an evergreen, of course, Karri is an evergreen. So to say that only deciduous trees can bend, it's probably more of a North American or European thing to say, if you know what I mean. So because technically evergreens are all softwoods, but clearly, I mean, spotted gum is more dense, heavier, and harder than maple.
Success of this might have been this was a thinner piece. This piece was about 2.5 mils thick, whereas the other piece was about 3.5. It's actually, I can see it now, right now while I'm holding it, it's moving back.
That piece was still wet.
Bend. Shit, I forgot to clamp down this whole thing.
Alright, I'll let you watch the rest of this now in actual audio. Catch you later. Stay down. It's lifted a little bit. Bend the other way. Shit, I'm wasting time here. Shouldn't have wasted that time. Other way. Oh, it's pushing it. It's pushing it. Okay. Back the other way again. Amazing that it went round that bend. Okay. Get ready to put this in place if it makes it. And it did. That's incredible. It never ceases to amaze me how well this timber bends when it works. Okay, now,
it went pretty well. This is a very tight bend and it looks really good. I cannot see any cracking there at all, so I'm very happy with that bend. Anyway, we've got a crack here. Now that crack might actually be slightly increasing, so I'm going to get a clamp on that straight away. Well, thank you for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up because it does actually help the channel out a lot. And I hope whatever steam bending project you're doing, I hope it works out well for you. Good luck.